It's a busy morning in the office, as usual. Detectives, forensics, and the criminal experts were running around, with the sounds of the phones ringing and the loud chattering of the people. Stefano was at his desk, looking through the case files. He was working on a case that was baffling him, which was very unusual. He took a long sip of his coffee, as he frowned in confusion and annoyance. The case is about a 24-year-old birthday boy who went out with his friends to a fancy restaurant and then to a popular club, where they danced and had a great time. After a couple hours, the boy went outside of the club for a quick smoke break, but he was brutally stabbed to death in the alleyway. No one was seen or heard of the attacker. The case became more complicated, because there was no murder weapon left behind. The victim had multiple people touching him at the club, which made it impossible to find any fingerprints on him. The detectives and forensics were puzzled and confused with the lack of evidence. They needed to find something, or they're not going to make any progress at all. After interrogating the friends, they were all ruled out. All of them were together in the club, dancing and enjoying themselves. At the time of the murder, they had all provided each other with strong alibis, and the CCTV footage from the club showed all of them together. He let out a deep sigh and pinched the bridge of his nose in frustration. His office phone rang, interrupting him from his thoughts. He picked it up. Yeah?
Hey, I'm sending you the footage we got from the restaurant. Also, I asked another suspect to come in. She's seen in the video talking to him for a second, but that's it. Sorry, bud, you mind if you interview her?
Stefano pinched the bridge of his nose again and replied with a tired tone. All right, no problem. Send her in. He leaned back into his chair and opened the video footage on his computer. The video showed a young woman sitting by herself at a table, next to the victim's table. Stefano fast-forwarded through the video, as there was nothing particularly eventful or worth noting. It was just the usual activities that happen at restaurants. He continued to watch the video, waiting for something to occur that could be of importance. The knocks at the door shook him out of his intense concentration. Without taking his eyes off the computer screen, he called out, "Come in." He turned his attention from the computer screen and towards you, his gaze still cold, but his tone slightly softer. "Take a seat," he said, gesturing to the chair in front of his desk. He watched you as you smiled, and sat down in the chair. "I assume you know why you're here?" He leaned forward in his chair, looking you straight in the eye. "You're here because we need to clarify your presence near a victim that died a few nights ago. Mark Smith was found dead after visiting a nightclub, right next to the restaurant he and his friends were dining at. Witnesses and security footage place you in the same area earlier that evening, and I need to know exactly what happened. Every detail matters." He observed your reaction with his sharp eyes, noticing the shock and sympathy in your voice. "He was stabbed to death," he answered bluntly, studying your face for any possible signs of guilt or deception. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze flicking over to the computer screen. He noticed a brief moment in the footage when you got up to use the washroom, and in the process, bumped into the victim, Mark Smith. But due to his big figure, the interaction was blocked off from the camera. Stefano noted this information mentally, his expression betraying nothing. He looked back at you, his gaze intense as he leaned forward, his elbows on his desk. "All right, let's get started. Can you tell me what you were doing at the restaurant that night?" He nodded, taking in your response. Okay. So, you were dining alone since your date didn't show up, And you ate alone. You left the restaurant around 10, is that correct? Did you notice anyone else in the restaurant who seemed out of place or unusual while you were there? He nodded, and then picked up a photograph and held it up for you to see. Do you recognize him? He asked. The photograph showed a young man with a cheerful smile. This is Mark Smith. You were seated next to their table. Do you recall overhearing anything? He nodded as you spoke, taking note of your recollection. Yes, it was his birthday, he agreed. They were quite loud, weren't they? I can imagine it was hard not to overhear their conversations with them being right next to your table. He observed your body language, noting the nod and your slow response. That's all you heard? He questioned, a subtle skepticism in his tone. Nothing else stood out to you? No strange conversations, no disagreements, or anything out of the ordinary? He nodded, making another note in his file. So they mentioned going to the club next door after they finished their dinner, and they left before you did, correct? He looked up from his file, his gaze fixed on your face. One more thing, he began, his tone serious. Did you happen to bump into Mark? Or speak to him at any point during the night? The detective raised an eyebrow, noting your response. So you did bump into him on your way to the washroom. He was coming back from the bar. You apologized, and both of you exchanged a small smile. Did anything else occur during that interaction? He let out a frustrated sigh and leaned back in his chair, rubbing his forehead in exhaustion. The detective couldn't shake the feeling that your testimony hadn't revealed anything substantial to the investigation. You only provided basic information, and there was nothing unusual or suspicious about your behavior around the time of the murder. He closed his notebook and looked up at you, his eyes narrowing ever so slightly. He thought for a moment, drumming his fingers on the desk. Just before you left the restaurant that night, did you happen to see Mark heading outside for some air? He paused, his gaze fixed on your face, waiting for your response. Around what time would that have been? He added, hoping this detail could add some new perspective to the case. All right, you say you left around 10 and didn't see him again. So you're certain you didn't cross paths anywhere outside the restaurant? Not in the alley, not on the street, and not near the club? He watched you closely, waiting for your answer to gauge your reaction. The question hit him like a slap in the face, but he quickly composed himself, his expression remaining stoic and professional. I'm simply asking a question, he responded. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes never breaking contact with yours. It's my job to question anyone who could potentially have knowledge about the victim's whereabouts before the crime took place. He sighed, recognizing the absurdity of the situation. No, he admitted, his tone slightly softer. I don't think you stabbed him. You don't exactly fit the profile of someone capable of such a violent act. He paused for a moment, his gaze flickering over your frame before continuing. The attack was brutal, and the culprit was likely a strong male. We just don't have any promising leads yet, unfortunately. He gestured towards you, his expression still somewhat skeptical. Unless, he began, his tone laced with caution. You saw someone, of course? He leaned forward, his eyes searching for any sign of hesitation or deception on your face. Anything you remember? He pressed, hoping you might recall something that could help the investigation. He sighed, his expression showing a hint of disappointment, although he tried to hide it. I see, he responded, his tone slightly resigned. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze still focused on you. It's understandable, considering it was a long night. But please, if you recall anything, even the smallest detail, don't hesitate to let me know. he urged. He nodded, accepting your response, even though he was unsatisfied with the lack of useful information. He gathered his notes, closing the file in front of him. All right then, he said, his tone cool and professional. Thank you for your time. We'll keep you informed if anything new arises. He stood up, signaling that the interview was over. He watched you as you slowly walked out of the room, his mind still racing, with unanswered questions, and a lack of substantial clues. He leaned back into his chair, running a hand through his hair in frustration. This case was proving to be more complicated than he had initially thought. He groaned to himself, frustration etched onto his face. The case was proving to be a puzzling and challenging one, with few solid leads. Damn it, he muttered under his breath, running a hand through his hair. This case is giving me more headaches than usual. He slumped back into his chair and pinched the bridge of his nose, trying to relieve the stress building up inside him. All right, let's go over the security footage one more time, he muttered to himself. He opened the file. With a sigh, he leaned back in his chair and started to watch the events unfold once again, hoping to spot something he might have missed before. Frustration filled him as he watched the footage for what seemed like the 100th time. His mind was drawing a blank, and the lack of progress was starting to get to him. Gosh.
As you stepped out of the police station, a smirk tugged at the corners of your lips. They underestimated you, thinking that your sweet and innocent demeanor made it impossible for you to be the culprit. But they were wrong. Oh, so wonderfully wrong. You relished in the satisfaction of knowing that you had fooled them all. They were searching for a strong male suspect, completely ignorant of your true capabilities. Little did they know you were perfectly capable of stabbing someone to death. The smirk on your face widened as you reflected on your ingenious plan. How did I do it? You mused aloud, a sense of smug satisfaction filling you. By using the oldest trick in the book, of course, slipping a drug into his drink. You chuckled softly, imagining the unsuspecting victim, Mark, experiencing the effects of the drug. So when he was at the club, he felt lightheaded, dizzy, and had to step out to get some air. Right into the place I had prepared, the alleyway. A soft chuckle escaped your lips as you thought about the clueless detective. Poor detective, you murmured, still amused by the whole situation. Just because I walked the other way doesn't mean I didn't sneak through the back, love. Gosh, you continued, your voice filled with arrogance. You chuckled again, recalling how the detective hadn't even noticed your secret weapon. And the murder weapon, I'm surprised he never brought it up. If he was curious, he could have just asked. It was strapped to my thigh the whole time. A smirk curled the corners of your lips as you imagined the detective trying to piece together the clues. Good luck figuring this one out, love. You sneered, your voice dripping with sarcasm. You never solved any of my others, though I'd actually slip up this time so you can finally meet me, you joked. You let out a small laugh, finding amusement in the detective's underestimation of your capabilities. I guess you didn't think I was capable of stabbing someone. I'll have to kill a little less violently next time, so you can actually notice me.